Again, good afternoon. My name is Mark Shaw. I'm Associate Curator of History for Gilcrease Museum. Thank you for joining us today for this month's From My Point of View program. As you are, I'm sure now aware, we had a power failure yesterday in the museum, and due to the diligence and commitment of a lot of our staff, we made this happen over here in this beautiful space in the Halpern Center. Our speaker today is photographer and longtime Tulsa resident, David Halpern. How many of you know David from his 30-plus years here in Tulsa? Okay, I figured that would be the case today. Well, I first became aware of David's photography about 16 years ago when I attended a program he gave supporting the reissue of his wonderful book detailing Tulsa's Art Deco treasures. And in fact, I think Melanie may have a couple of those available today. So in my mind, at least at that time, David was an architectural photographer. Little could I have imagined back then that our paths would cross some 16 years later with far more significance. And our paths crossed last summer, about 10 months ago. And that's when I learned that David Halpern is far better known as a landscape photographer than of architectural treasures. Well, how well known is he? This winter, spring, David began his 13th assignment as an artist in residence for the National Park Service. He has been artist in residence at sites all over the nation. His most recent assignment is at a site in New Mexico, Las Salinas, south of Albuquerque. And this is a fellow that's now in his 8th decade, most of which he has spent as a photographer. As I mentioned, I learned that David was much better known as a landscape photographer than what I had associated him with, architecture. And this, by chance, this knowledge came to me just as I was trying to think of ways to better utilize our Homer Hall space for David's exhibitions. So again, by happy coincidence, I think, the need to do something with Helmer Hall, the knowledge that David is a wonderful landscape photographer, eventually produced the exhibition, David's first ever at Gilcrease Museum, The Essence of Place, celebrating the photography of David Halpern. Now, I know that David is going to provide you with bits of his personal biography during his program today, so I'll limit my comments to just a few little observations. First, there has been and continues to be a debate as to whether or not photography should be considered fine art. My guess is that after listening to David today and time spent in the exhibit, The Essence of Place, you'll agree with me that David is an artist, in my opinion, of the first rank, fully deserving to have his art exhibited in Gilcrease Museum. Second, as curators here at Gilcrease, we typically develop exhibitions around the works of artists who left this world a long time ago. So it's been a real pleasure and privilege to work with someone who is very much with us in the here and now. And over the past 10 months, as I've gotten to know David, worked with him on this exhibition, I've come to consider him both a friend and someone whose work I greatly admire. And third, as I mentioned about 20 minutes ago, David has graciously agreed to do a book and exhibition catalog signing after the program today. And I know many of you will want to visit with him. As we do that, I'll have to be the bad guy and drag him away from the lectern here around 1 or so. Trust me, there'll be time to visit, plenty of time to visit with David, and we have those exhibition catalog portfolios and books available at the reception area right over here. And with that, please welcome David Halpern to Gilcrease Museum.
Thank you all for being here. This has been a wonderful opportunity for me, and I look forward to continuing opportunities throughout this year. When I picked up my first camera at the age of 12, the choices were limited. Hello. Choices were limited, the rules were simple, and my expectations were only that I would put recognizable myself on film. I had no aspirations to create art. Today I use photography to expand my own visions, to liberate my own perceptions of the world we live in, and to help others do the same. Before I talk about the photographs in the exhibition, I need to tell you my personal story and provide some insight into what I do and why I do it. I discovered photography in the 1940s when the camera of choice, as you can see here, was the Kodak box Brownie. It was as simple as a camera could be or would ever be, and it satisfied the average person's needs quite adequately. Family events and vacations were rather faithfully recorded in black and white, and the pictures were stored away in albums to be taken down from the shelf on special occasions and shared around the fireplace, and knew it all. Today's popular equivalent, you see it, is the iPhone. It provides a means of sharing what once were called Kodak moments instantly via the internet with the world. The photo album has been replaced by the cloud and only rarely printed. Before I was a teenager, I'd learned to develop film and make my own prints in a basement darkroom where I used chemicals that still reside in my nasal passages after all these years. My results were crude by any comparison with what you can print in your desktop printers today, but they seemed quite adequate at the time, and I enjoyed making them. There came a time in post-World War II, 1940, when I began to notice that there were ways to make better pictures. But before I could do that, I needed to have the proper equipment. And I quickly found out that I wasn't going to get that as a gift from my parents. It wasn't the expense that held it back, but a conviction that the family Kodak was just fine and that I needed nothing more than that. My Uncle Henry, on the other hand, had bought a real fancy camera, the Argus C3, which became known for obvious reasons, if you look at it here, as the brick. I have this camera today because I inherited it when he died, but I lusted after that camera for years. I did, however, manage to talk the folks out of a new and somewhat improved box camera. It was called the Kodak Flash 620, and for a few years I used it to make party pics, which I sold for 25 cents a piece, and I stashed those quarters in a personal fund for photographic improvements. So by the time I was 15, I managed to buy my first real camera. A Century Graphic press-type camera that used 2¼ inch by 3¼ inch sheet film, had a decent lens, variable shutter speeds, and was capable of more than I then had the knowledge to do. At 15, I had become a serious photographer, and even my family came to take me semi-seriously. My early years were spent in Nashville, Tennessee, which then had a population of less than 150,000. There was no opportunity for me to study photography there, so I hung out at the camera stores, where I met newspaper photographers and a few commercial pros. I listened to them talk, read books on photography, and looked at photographs. There was no photography in the local museums, absolutely none. And I certainly wasn't making art, but I gradually attained a bit of proficiency. It would be years before I entertained the notion of making photography my life's work. And there would come a time, there would be some memorable lessons to learn along the way. Before I graduated from Vanderbilt University in 1958, I decided I wanted to be in the advertising business. I wasn't about to abandon my photography, but I let older and supposedly wiser heads convince me that if I wanted to make money, I needed to pursue a more lucrative activity. So I followed that route, married, had 2 wonderful sons, and photography became a personal activity, though there were times when I was able to use it with my work and see the results in print. In the early 1960s, we moved to Louisville, Kentucky, where I began to get a broader view of the world. And 5 years later, we moved to St. Louis, where my interest in photography intensified. In 1969, while on vacation, I visited the George Eastman House in Rochester, New York. It was the first time I'd been to a museum that was all about photography. I was awestruck, and I asked the family members who had taken me there to continue their plans for the day and come back for me when the museum closed that evening. Now, don't get the idea that I had spent my first 33 years deprived of exposure to art. To the contrary, by the time I entered high school in 1950, I was regularly taking a local bus to visit art spaces in Nashville and spending hours studying the paintings and sculpture. I was such a regular that the museum guards came to recognize me, but the museums and galleries didn't feature photography, and in Nashville, photographs clearly weren't recognized as art. I had seen the Family of Man exhibition that Edward Steichen put together at MoMA in 1955. But as impressive as that was, the photographs would display reproductions and not fine frame prints where the viewer could study the image quality as well as their content. So my visit to the George Eastman House was a revelation. Oh, I'm going to go to black here because we're going to wait a minute before I get some more slides here. Okay. So my visit to the George Eastman House was a revelation. I saw examples of every type of print I'd ever read about, by every photographer I'd ever read about. I read every label. I talked to the curator. I asked a lot of questions. I was spellbound. I was the last visitor to leave the museum when it closed that evening, and I felt both exhilaration and depression. I'd had an epiphany. I wanted to go home, destroy every photograph I had made, and start over. I didn't do that, but the 47 years since then have been a period of constant growth and change. Now let's flash forward a few years and discuss what I mean when I talk about expanding my own vision and liberating perceptions of the world we live in. I haven't had much to say about the technology of photography up to this point. In part, that's because from the time I started taking pictures, and as I progressed to the point when I started making pictures, the technology didn't change radically. I used to tell my students that when they moaned and groaned about not having cameras with all the latest bells and whistles, and that their cameras were not the most important tools they had. A camera was simply a light-tight box with a hole in the lid, or a lens in one end to let the light in, and a place in the opposite end to put a light-sensitive material in which to capture and record that light. You could get a good lens, use a choice of light-sensitive media, but once you got down to the basics, to paraphrase Gertrude Stein, a camera is a camera is a camera. Essentially, that was true until digital cameras came along. And while the fundamentals haven't changed all that much, the options have multiplied exponentially. Let's look at the fundamentals for a moment and examine some of the most important changes that occurred over my first 33 years. And the first big change actually came the year I was born, 1936. That's when Kodak introduced Kodachrome film, destined to become iconic. Paul Simon said it all in song. Kodachrome gives us those nice bright colors, gives us the greens of summers, makes you think all the world's a sunny day. So Mama, don't take my Kodachrome away. But despite that plea, it was taken away on June the 22nd, 2009, when Kodak discontinued the product. The second big change was the invention of the 35mm single-lens reflex camera, which some of us think has always been with us, but it hasn't. That was significant as were the introduction of films with greater sensitivity and the chemicals that could be used to achieve more refined results in shorter processing times. I remember a time in the 1980s when I was asked by Kodak to participate in a teleconference to discuss, guess what? It's a funny thing, these things happen, you know. I'm sitting here with these pages, and page 5 skipped over to page 7. So, that's all right. We'll move it. Anyway, a lot of things did occur. The most significant thing that I remember during my early years, was the introduction of Polaroid, developed by Edwin Land. Polaroid film really improved my efficiency as a studio photographer, and even my efficiency as a landscape photographer. It allowed me to test, preview photographs before I ever recorded it on film. Up until that time, what you had to do is you had to expose it on film. You went in the darkroom and you processed that film. And if it came out fine, otherwise you went back if you had the option to take it over again. If you didn't have the option to take it over again, it was just a loss. Polaroid sort of improved the certainty that what I recorded in the camera was something that I would see again in a print. I remember, when we get into the digital area, the digital area really brought a lot of radical changes. But I remember a time in the late 1980s when I was asked by Kodak to participate in a teleconference to discuss the market for digital photography and how we could see ourselves using it. There were about a dozen participants in this conversation, all practicing professional photographers. And we talked for more than an hour. I was surprised at the time that I was one of few participants who knew enough about digital to distinguish it from video. Because up to then we had video, and everybody felt no matter what digital is going to be. But we were talking about still photography. And that was when people started talking about video, I would pipe up and say, but we're not talking about video. And that was usually followed by an awkward silence that was finally broken by our moderator. Afterward, I got a phone call from another one of the participants who wanted to share his frustration that the group as a whole really didn't understand the subject. It was confusing for sure. And later, while speaking to a group of public relations professionals in the early 1980s, I predicted that digital photography and the computer would replace film as we then knew it, and that a scanner would replace the film holder in my large format view camera, that the image would be recorded in the computer, and that the opportunities to manipulate that image would be virtually limitless and non-destructive. And my audience looked at me like I had lost my mind. But the fact was that my predictions, based on my readings of, among other sources, Scientific American magazines, were conservative. Reality quickly surpassed my expectation. A Kodak scientist named Steve Sasson invented the first still digital camera in 1975, and Kodak did collaborate with Nikon and Canon to produce cameras for professional use until 2005. But Kodak never fully embraced the digital movement, and the company on which so many of us relied for many years is no longer a major factor in professional digital photography. Obviously, I've become an advocate for digital and the digital print. Had you asked me 20 years ago if I was prepared to embrace the new medium, I would have been slow to answer. Now I respond quickly and offer no apology. Why? At first, I resisted for 3 critical reasons. One, because I couldn't and still can't see myself taking a camera into the field that has to be tethered to a computer, and the early cameras had to be. Second, because the early digital prints had very short lifespan. Colors faded quickly and black and white prints were weak gray. Put simply, the inks and papers could not replicate the quality of a traditional darkroom print. And third, because cameras that produced high-resolution images were very expensive, and I couldn't afford equipment capable of matching the resolution and the appearance of films. I was accustomed to using. A grainy print from film was one thing, but a pixelated print was totally unappealing. I credit my wife Sue with making me a digital convert. Tired of waiting for me to set up my film camera to make family pictures, she handed me a gift-wrapped box one day and admonished me to just take a picture. Is that about the right vocal intonation? Yeah. It was a 2.3 megapixel plastic Olympus camera with built-in flash, and I was almost embarrassed to be seen holding it. But the darn thing made amazing pictures, especially if you printed them small. I decided to push that camera to its limits, to do things that the instruction manual didn't talk about, and see how far I could take it. I even talked a couple of clients into letting me use it on commercial assignments when the end product needed only to be an image of about 5x7 or smaller. Understandable, they were skeptical at first, then amazed. Printing companies were surprised. Other photographers thought I was crazy, but the proof was in the performance. Then I took it with me on a trip to Saguaro National Park in 1998 and made the first digital image that became a part of my landscape portfolio. It's in my book, Gilcrease Museum, and no one has ever asked me what camera I made it with or what film I used. I had altered perceptions with a digital camera for the first time, not only for others, but for myself as well. Since that time, I've owned and used a dozen different digital cameras, and my primary camera today will allow me to produce images that enlarge easily to 30 inches by 40 inches and rival anything I've ever made on film. The computer software I use to process the images allows me to do everything I was capable of doing in my darkroom when I was working with film. And it also allows me to do things and accomplish things I'd always dreamed of doing, but could not. What's more important, I can achieve more consistent results than I could in the darkroom. The first time I showed one of my prints to an expert appraiser who admitted he couldn't tell the difference between it and a traditional silver print, I knew I had succeeded. Digital printing methods have improved so much in the last 20 years that I can say with confidence that my color prints with proper storage and exhibition conditions will last roughly 100 years, maybe a little more. And that black and white prints will double that. All my prints in this current exhibition are made digitally. Some are images that were recorded digitally, and some are images I made years ago on film. Look for the differences if you wish, but don't be surprised if you can't find it. We've now reached the point when it makes little sense to argue over the relative merits of digital versus traditional photography, even though their advocates still do. Most people can't tell the difference between a well-executed digital image and one captured on film and printed in a wet darkroom. Which is not to say that differences don't exist, just that in my opinion it simply doesn't matter. Whatever effect you're looking for, it can be achieved digitally, and only the most educated technician, curator, or critic can tell the difference with the naked eye. All that having been said, not all photographers are capable of producing the highest quality results. That was true 100 years ago, and it's still true today. And despite technological evolution, a lot of what goes into every so-called art form is subjective. There's not a single formula for success. Well, now we've dispensed with that history. Let's talk about the most important tools in the photographer's arsenal and what hasn't changed since the very beginning. First, there's the human eye. Not that all of us see alike, certain that we don't, but there's such a thing in the medical lexicon as normal vision. Beg your indulgence while I try to explain the significant differences between how the eye perceives and what the camera lens captures. The focal length of the camera's lens, which is the distance between the rear nodal point of the lens and the film. determines the angle of view and affects the range of focus. If you're accustomed to using a 35mm camera, the lens that will closely approximate the normal view of the human eye is one with a focal length of from 46 to 50 millimeters. So most of it has something like that. And we call that a normal lens. If you want to take a broad expanse, you can select what's called a wide-angle lens. And if you want to take in a narrow field of view and make distant subjects appear closer, you would choose a telephoto lens or long focal length lens to produce the desired perspective. The human eye, on the other hand, has the remarkable ability to focus continuously, and it provides you peripheral vision that makes you aware of subjects both left and right, above and below the point of your concentration. When both eyes work together, peripheral vision is truly remarkable. And as your eyes move almost unconsciously, you're able to see a panorama that no normal or fixed lens can see. I want to demonstrate something to you here. Several years ago, while I was marveling at some paintings by Halpern, this is one that he did of Long's Peak in Rocky Mountain National Park, I began to think about how I might achieve some of the effects he brought to his painting. The overall field of view was expansive, yet using his skills as a painter, he wasn't limited to the perspective of a wide-angle lens, which diminishes the size of distant mountains and cliffs. His normal eye adjusted constantly, maintaining focus from near ground to mid-ground to infinity. And his perceptions of distant peaks was that they were majestic. He scaled them to match his perceptions. How could I do that in a photograph? It would require that the characteristics of three lenses be combined into one in a way that was technically impossible, yet achievable using the tools of the more recently developed digital software. By trial and error, I managed to produce an image, being careful not to exaggerate the distortion effects beyond what was believable. I took several images with different lenses to help me temper the effects. I'm going to show you something here. This is the original exposure of an image that I made of a place called Green Lake in the Rocky Mountain National Park. This is made with a normal lens. But it takes in a wide field of view. And in the process, that peak, which is located right there, which is called Halpern, doesn't look anywhere near as majestic as it does to a person standing in the position where I took this from, as it could. Bierstein painted it much taller. Okay? So here's the original image. Whoops, excuse me. So that's the original image. And this is what I wanted to do. Okay? Now, I have shown this image to people who've been to this place and know it well. And nobody's ever challenged me or said, you did something strange. They look at that and they said, yeah, when I'm standing there on the shore of Dream Lake, that's what it looks like to me. Okay, well, how do we get there? Well, first of all, look at this. This picture on the left, that's the normal perspective. This was taken with a slightly telephoto lens. You see how it looks a little sharper and taller? Okay. Here's a picture of a portion of the photo. This is this portion right here. When you use a telephoto lens and get up close on it, look how much more prominent that becomes, right? Okay. So, what do we do? There's the start. That's the original image. Then we do this. We separate the image into three zones. The top one is an area that I'm going to treat as if it was taken with a telephoto lens. The middle bit looks normal. We're going to leave it that way because that's the mid-ground. Of course, the bottom right here is the foreground. I had to look down toward my feet to see that. And so we ought to really get the feeling of looking down on that with a more wide-angle perspective. So, okay, here's where the background has been treated to make it a little taller. Okay? Midground still the same, foreground still the same. Now we combine those two images you previously saw of the background and the midground. And now we're going to take a look at the foreground, and we're going to expand that just a little bit. Okay? So that this is the perspective we create. And look at that. We merge all three zones, and the picture becomes a little more imposing. Okay? All right. So, no, it is. All right. Here we go. Whoop. I wish we went with low electronics. Okay. So here's the side-by-side comparison. Picture on the lower right, the original. Picture above, expanded a bit. But not drastic. What I'm doing is merely making it conform to my perceptions, and probably to yours. It's become a photographic illustration in the process. It's not a straight photograph anymore. But I think it's justified. Anyway, that's my argument. Here's the image cropped into a square, getting rid of some of the left and right, which attracted attention away from the central portion. And there's the final image, which I created a while later. And here, I went in and I took a photograph of the sky with these sort of ethereal clouds whipping around the peak. And I took those clouds and sort of imposed it over the mountains. It brings a little bit of motion to it. It also lightens the value of the mountains and pushes them back into the distance so you feel a sense of distance. And that's what the final picture looks like. So, we alter perceptions once again. Okay. Since that experiment, I've employed the technique many times with different subjects, but never more dramatically than that, and often less dramatically, to satisfy my own perceptions. The results are beyond what most of my fellow photographers would call straight photography. But why should I accept the limitations of my tools just because that is the way it was in the past? To the purest mind, I may be altering the exact truth, but I am matching my perceptions of reality, which none of us sees in exactly the same way. I'm doing nothing that painters haven't done before or since. The second tool that hasn't changed over the years is light. Light is a vital tool to the photographer's arsenal. Without it, we couldn't make photographs. It defines form and texture. It creates mood, and it can be quiet or raging mad, and everything in between those extremes. It is vital in defining our intent. Let's go to black again. And it's vital in defining how it communicates with the viewer and defining the creative process and the success of the composition. Photographers have always known that, and they have carefully controlled the light in studio images and adjusted the values in landscape prints by holding back light in certain areas, that's called dodging, or adding a little light in certain areas, that's called burning. And then sometimes we even put a little bleach into the print to bring out the brilliance of the white. That's what we did in chemical dark. Through the years, we've controlled contrast and color values with filters and other means. Today we have even more tools in our computer software, and while I will often spend hours waiting for a particular light before making an exposure, I envy the painter who can create the desired light with the applications of color. Nothing is a substitute for perfect light, but the computer has, to an extent, made the light we are able to capture just a bit more malleable, although one has to apply the tools carefully so the sensibilities aren't abused. I'm sure some of you have seen some of these photographs that have been so enhanced in the color. You look at it, wow, I've never seen anything like that. Well, if you've never seen anything like that, it probably didn't exist. The goal when using these techniques is to achieve a result that appears natural rather than manipulated. Natural rather than manipulated. But here's the most important tool we have and we've always had. It's the thought process. I don't have a single word for it. Call it philosophy, perhaps. It's the quest for a personal statement, vision, and style. It's different for each of us, and unlike the tools that each of us is given, this one is derived from personal effort. It grows out of experience and immersion in the work you're doing. It's a process that begins early, but it takes a long time to emerge and may change many times through the years. The page is hiding. Let's see. Okay. In my own case, this philosophy emerged without the benefit of formal education, largely without mentors or artistic environment. I told you I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. I shouldn't blame Nashville anymore. It's really come along. As a child of the 1940s, influenced by the ubiquity of graphic novels and comic books, I developed an interest in a modest talent for drawing, which was unique in my family. I grew up hearing my mother say, "I don't know where he gets it. I can't draw a straight line with a ruler." Never understood what that had to do with art, and I still don't. For most of my childhood, I simply enjoyed drawing pictures. Photography became an interest in my teens. Until then, I had just a few teachers that talked about art, enough to give my classmates an awareness of specific famous paintings, like, say, the Mona Lisa. But art wasn't taught in my classrooms. It wasn't until my sophomore year in high school that I discovered and became influenced by a real art teacher who believed I had an innate sense of design and offered encouragement. So I tried to paint, and I made many frustrating efforts that appealed to no one outside my immediate family. My problem was that I didn't know when to put the brush down, and I kept painting until the work was ruined. I turned to photography, partly because of that. Not because it was art, but because I was able to produce images that were recognizable. When at 15 I made a picture that was more than mere documentation, I didn't have enough sensitivity to understand what I had done. My parents would never have condoned the use of my artistic talents as a basis for a career decision. When I later decided to enter the advertising business, they appreciated that the involvement in commercial art or photography could produce immediate income. That could be justified, though a more traditional business career would have been preferable. So while photography had been an important part of my life since an early age, it didn't become my full-time occupation until the early 1970s, and I didn't exhibit my work publicly until 1974. Most of my knowledge of photography was gained by associating with photographers, as I said before, by reading, looking at photographs, individual experiments, and trial and error. My greatest influences were Albert Bierschot and Thomas Moran. Not other photographers. Billy Easley, I don't know who he was, but he was a friend. Mother Nature, Fritz Perls, Aldo Leopold, and myriad artists and writers who, although I never met most of them personally, influenced me with their work and taught me to see. One can study design and learn the principles of photography in the classroom and workshops, but the ability to see and feel an emotional attachment to the subject when renders in various art forms are outgrowths primarily of experience, of being alive in the most authentic sense. These are the things that are most important to me, the things I pass along to my students and try to reveal in my images. I discovered long ago that you can overthink the process of making a photograph, justifying every part of the process with words and rules. But photography is visual. It's a powerful form of visual communication, and the photographer must give everything to the visual execution. It's impossible in the instant of someone's initial contact with the image to convey an ideological treatise to clarify the viewer's understanding of that moment. It either works or it doesn't. The visual cacophony to which we're exposed daily precludes our devoting a large amount of time to every image we see. But if an image holds the attention of any viewer long enough to convey a message at all, he or she may claim an important degree of success and has contributed to the conversation of life. Your influence may not rise to the level to which you aspire, but it's important to make the effort. So these three things, then, are the tools with which one begins to expand visions and liberate perceptions: the eye, light, and the thought process. And because these tools have been there from the beginning and remain despite all the technological changes photography has undergone through the years, they are the most important tools we have. Two things become important when we look at photography today and compare it with photography in the middle of the 20th century. First, the basic elements of photography haven't changed that much, as I said, but the tools and the technology have changed radically in a relatively short time, opening up opportunities that couldn't be imagined by even the greatest of photographers, who we now credit for turning photography into an art form. And second, as photography has progressed into the 21st century with all new technology, tools, and opportunities, a new generation of computer-savvy image makers have emerged who are neither knowledgeable nor encumbered by the limitations of the past and find themselves in a position to redefine art in several ways. Recognizing this dichotomy, I and others of my generation find ourselves caught between the old and the new, grateful for having the opportunity to experience both ends of the spectrum and trying our best to remain relevant, defending the validity of what we have already created while striving to build on that foundation and instill new vision and meaning in the work we're doing now and will do in however much time we have remaining. Photography is so much a part of what we do and who we are, and it's going to remain so. I've always experimented with different approaches to my work and alternative techniques, though few of my experiments have found their way into my personal portfolio, and some not even into the light of day. Over the years, when I was working for commercial clients who allowed me freedom, I did work in the studio and on location that reflected an interest in unconventional perspectives. In the darkroom, I often altered images to solve problems to better communicate a point to the viewer. And often I did these things on my own. The manipulations made the photographs more effective and were rarely extreme to the point of drawing the client's attention. In my personal work, and particularly in my landscape photography, I have resisted the temptation to manipulate images in any way that distorted the fundamental truth. But as we said earlier, not all people see things alike. Certainly the camera's lens doesn't always match one's personal vision. We have different visual perspectives. And inasmuch as I don't regard myself as a documentary photographer with the responsibility to portray my subjects exactly as the camera captures them, I feel unrestrained from creating photographic illustrations that reflect my personal impression, focusing on what I believe to be the essence of the place. Incidentally, that was Mark's title for this. I was really flattered by his titling to show that way, and he's really made a major contribution in my thinking about my own work. We're looking at things in a rather selfish way, perhaps, focusing on what I want the viewer to take from the photograph, be that a certain visual response or a simple gut feeling about the place of the moment. Its value, its conditions, its qualities, which might be its beauty, majesty, weirdness, or simple ordinariness. I don't want you to see it and just walk away. I'm hoping I can make you care about it, though I realize I won't always succeed at that. We all care about different things in different ways. You see, I'm concerned and always have been about the environment. It started with the natural environment, and as I've become older, and I hope wiser, my concern has broadened to include the totality of all that surrounds us. Many years ago, I made a statement that I wanted my photographs to be a means of communicating my own feelings about things I cared for, with the hope that I could convince others to care in a similar manner. I'm not being political. I just want future generations to be able to enjoy the things I've enjoyed. I think all of us would like that. Changes are inevitable, but we need to respect what we have. And in the case of landscape, let nature as opposed to special interests dictate which changes will occur. You know, in the end, nature will always win. Maybe not the way you want it to, but nature will win. We can help by not adding to the negative impacts. Anyway, that's the way things appear from my point of view. Now, that's the end of my formal comment. But what I want to do, for the benefit of those of you, how many of you have seen the show? Not everybody, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some slides up here that are slides of images in the show. They're in the catalog. They look a lot better in the catalog than they do here. This one, right, we're in a room that's a lot brighter than our custom projector. So in this photograph right here, you can see a great deal more detail. Those of you who heard Rich Fisher yesterday morning interview me, he talks about this picture. And he said, you know, you can't see all the detail down in this foreground unless you look carefully. Well, as carefully as you might look this morning, you probably ain't going to see the detail. So here's a picture of the Taos Pueblo. And I'll just go through this. We've talked about the Black Canyon in Gunnison. I have talked about it as being the most difficult subject I've ever photographed. And this particular picture, for those of you, how many of you are photographers? You don't have to be professional. How many take pictures? How many take pictures? If you go to the Black Canyon in Gunnison, and you look into a scene like this, you're looking down into a chasm about 2,000 feet deep. And at the bottom of that thing, the light pattern is about 14 f-stops. Photographers will understand that. Different than what's at the top of the canyon. Now, that makes it very hard for film to record it. This photograph, again, look at the catalog. You'll see that this really captures that detail. This I've always enjoyed. This is a photograph made right here in Oklahoma, in the Wichita Mountains, in a forest down there that was planted by the CCC back in the 30s. And they planted it like a farmer would plant his corn crop, right? And so they planted everything in nice straight lines. Now, if you go down there today, it's become a little bit overgrown. They had just cleared out some of the trees at the time that I took this picture way back in 1970. So anyway, but it's always been one of my favorites. Oklahoma Today magazine featured this as the leading photograph in the portfolio this past year that they did of all the photographs that have been published, their long history of publishing landscape photographs of Oklahoma. So, these are roof planes in Silverton, Colorado. This is a church. Hello. Oh, there it goes. This is a church that Ansel Adams photographed from the rear many years before me. And while I really admired this photograph, and that's what caused me to go looking for this, I decided I like the front look of the back of the world. So see, that's what makes the world look. This photograph has sort of become iconic in my portfolio. It's a picture of Lethal Falls and Rocky Mountain National Park. Made a poster of this thing. It wasn't terribly popular. The reason it wasn't very popular, I finally decided, was people have a tendency to like photographs of things they've seen. And not everybody wanders into the backcountry that far to see them. So, while they thought it was a nice photograph, we still got copies of it. Picture from Woodforest Point, Grand Canyon. Again, the details are so much. You see a tree tunnel like that? This is on the Rio Chama in New Mexico. Oh, that doesn't work. This is a 30 by 40 inch print. It screams off the wall if you look together. It's in Fairplay, Colorado, South Park Community Church. Love that little place. Clouds make a picture, don't they? And this is in Slot Canyon called Antelope Canyon in Arizona. A lot of people go there. It's become over-photographed, I would say, over the years. I have two photographs that I show that I don't think I've seen anybody else make. This is one of them. I didn't take no into it. This is made in Jenks, Oklahoma. I was teaching a workshop. Students and I wandered into this barn, and I was actually using it to demonstrate the light as it could be used for portraits. We had a child with us, and we were all photographing the child, and after a while I turned around and looked at the wall behind me and saw this and said, gee, that's nice. That's the way photographs happen sometimes. You have to be prepared for it. This is a place called Alcove House in Bandelier National Monument. My objective here was to make a photograph that showed the entire arch of the Cape Eagle. That required some doing. Again, for the photography, it required a 16 millimeter. A church down in Texas, in Medina, Texas, among the blue bonnets. That was made originally in film. Pretty big. That's also a 30 by 40 inch in the show. I call this figure ground, and it reminds me of an Alexander Ho. Mother Earth laid bare. It's really funny. I was walking through this area, and we wandered off the trail and looked down on the ground there and said, gee, that's interesting. How'd you get buried there? This one is another one. It's got just incredible detail in it. This is a Mills Lake in Rocky Mountain National Park. Gilpin Peak in the San Juan. It doesn't show up well here, but that's a 30 by 40. It's a place where it's a ghost ranch. And if you look up here, we'll stop that. Back. Up here, you see a little building in the lower right? That was George O'Keeffe's house. They don't allow you to go back there and photograph it. I had to get for special permission to use that for the show. Aspens on Independence Pass in Colorado. Biggest aspen trees I've ever seen. I wish I could. Okay. Can't help it. The light's just overwhelming. That happens to be doorways in Chaco Canyon. Pueblo. There's a church in Los Trompos. Oh gosh. Ask it. And I'll just go through these things. the light is just bleaching this out. This is a place called the White House, which Georgia O'Keeffe painted a lot. And this photograph made it on one of my very first visits up there. A lot of times it happens that way. The very first time I go someplace, I'm struck by it in a special way. And it's not uncommon when I make some of the best pictures the very first time I visit, then I go back over and over and over again, and I try them again. And, the first one still, I guess it's the excitement. I don't know. Now, you've seen the rear of this church many times. This is Rancho Santa Fe in Taos. And this is St. Francis of Assisi. But this is the picture that everybody takes. You see it, this image is not shown. But this one is. So I wanted to do something different than anybody has done. So, and it got there at a time when the shadows were right and the light. It pleases me. I hope it pleases you. This is at Capitol Reef. That's a typical New Mexico sky. Mount Sneffels in the San Juan Mountains of Colorado. This is a wall of caves in Bandelier National Monument. This is also a 30 by 40 inch. That's an old mill ruin. Has since really collapsed for the most part, but it's in the San Juan Mountains. That's here in New Mexico. That's here in Oklahoma. That's in the Wichita Mountains, and I wish you could see it better. So you have to go and get them to show it. It's 30 by 40 inch. Oh, you can't. Okay, another 30 by 40. Yeah, I've got a bunch of big 30 by 40 colors. Coming back home one afternoon after a day of shooting in the Santa Fe National Forest, and the light was coming through these trees, and the whole thing was backlit by a forest of pine trees, and like a burning bush came along. Same road, but a different time of the year. Okay. Let's call it blue. That's at the White Place. Again, Georgia O'Keeffe's stomping ground. I must be doing something funny. That's an old post office in Lionel. Yeah. This is a picture of petroglyphs that have been vandalized. If you can see the details, you can see people shot bullets into it. This also is near the Ghost Ranch on Monastery Road. And, forget it. This, like those rocks, this is one of the places I wanted to photograph first when I got to New Mexico. There's a place called Vista Valley. Actually, it's more than just Vista. Vista de Nazareth Wilderness. And it's got some of those bizarre rock forms you don't ever want to see. But in this particular case, I was walking through the very first time I was there with a friend of mine who believes that the first time you go anywhere, you can't make a decent picture. So this is not a decent picture. But I saw that cloud. Now, if you go see it in the exhibit, the cloud is, shaped like a V, and it's pointing downward. And I wanted to find something that I could photograph with that cloud. So I struck off on foot to see what I could find, and I found a wonderful mushroom-shaped rock. Anyway, I don't think I made a better picture of of the Vista I sent you. This is another one from the Vista. And there you go, cracked eggs. I hate it when people give things names because it changes your perceptions of them. And you really want to go there and give it your own name, and you want to keep it secret. My pet name for this picture is Pinto Snow, but it was taken from a point high in the San Juan, looking out. That's an engineer's pass. And there's a 3 saguaro from down in Scottsdale. This one I call Vortex. This is the other picture that I haven't seen anybody make one just like it. It's from Antelope Canyon too. And I think that's the end of it. There are 47 pictures there. And how many of them did you see? Well, anyway, I thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, I don't have time to answer them right now because they want me to go over here and sign books and things. What?
Go ahead. Anyone has any questions for David?
If you have any questions, I'll take a few questions. But I'll be happy to talk to any of you one-on-one.
What's the best time of day? Obviously, it depends on.
You know, it depends on the subject, really. Everybody tells you that the best times of the day are early in the morning and late in the afternoon. Why? Because, the light is more angular. But and that's generally true. But there are some subjects that are just wonderful under a cloudy sky with flat light. And wildflowers, for example. I'd rather photograph wildflowers under that kind of light than under bright light that gives me spectral highlight. But so there's no absolute answer.
Because Kodak was the leader in all film, what's your take and why they didn't get onto the digital so that they're still robust in the digital arena?
I think you're going to have to ask the people at Kodak. I think Kodak actually. I talked to some people. I actually felt that there would always be a need for a certain amount of film, a certain amount of paper, and there would be people who would embrace the traditional ways. And there are people who embrace the original methods. But the fact of the matter is, as digital has progressed, I mean, you look at some of these images that I printed on papers that look like the photographic papers that we used in the darkroom. And you look at the quality of the images with the rich blacks and long tonal ranges that the digital image is able to produce. And you look at the colors, and you look at not the archival, but the life expectancy of these products. It is improved. I mean, my early digital prints that I made, gosh, they faded in no time at all. It was terrible. I used to make a print on the computer, on the printer, and I used to put it in the window of my house and see how long it took for it to fade. Amazing, it really faded pretty quickly. But today, it's another thing I'm talking about.
You ever use your phone as a camera?
Yes. Yes, I do. I use it for reference photos. And sometimes when I'm going someplace and I don't have, I just haven't bothered to pick up a camera, that's rare. That camera's almost always in my car if it's not hanging around. But
The best camera is the one that you have with you.
absolutely. And beside which, the new phones have pretty high resolution. You're talking about 14 megapixels quality. It's pretty neat. Yeah. And the things you can do with them, make panoramic pictures. I know one photographer named Dan Burkholder, who's written books on digital and iPhone photography. And Dan travels back and forth from his home to where he teaches. And he carries his iPhone with him everywhere. And he has all kinds of software loaded into that thing that allow him to process the pictures. So he'll be on the subway, whatever have it, and he'll have taken some pictures, and he'll combine them all and make these very elaborate artistic prints. He's done some fantastic work. You'd never know it was an iPhone.
What have been a couple of your favorite National Park Service residence assignments, photographically speaking, and why?
All of them. No, it's somebody, I get asked that question a lot. And I don't play favorites because it's like picking between your children. I can tell you reasons why I like all the places that I've been. And over the years, I've been to an awful lot of national parks and monuments and national forests, and BLM land and all that sort of thing. I lost count of how many there were years ago. But these places are just marvelous. The one I'm working in right now is called Salinas Pueblo Missions National Monument. It's an interesting place. These old Spanish missions were built back in the 1600s. And over the years, they deteriorated. The Aztecs burned them down at that point. I mean, you can't burn stone down. But some of the walls are still remaining, so the ruins are really quite attractive and quite interesting to look at. I'm also fascinated by the fact that the women of the Pueblos actually were brought in to build walls. The Spanish designed them, but then they little Native American people. They don't call themselves Native American in New Mexico. Political correctness doesn't go. They're Indians, okay? And anyway, excuse me. No, but they did the work, and there's some walls remaining that are 30 feet tall, and some of the beams that are embedded in those walls, it's very hard to fathom. But anyway, I'm having a good time here. And I'm fascinated with the area. But it's very different than, say, Glacier Nation. Okay, you going to drag me on? You know I